Yeah, but I'm just going for a walk, so can I just keep walking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, no worries. Thank you very much.
We'll get your name and address.
Do I need to give that?
Yes, you do.
What crime have I committed? What offence?
You don't have to be committing a crime.
So I've not committed an offence? I'll give you my name, but have I committed an offence? I'll give you my name under duress because I've committed no offence.
What's your name, sir?
Name.
My name? Martin.
Beautiful, Martin.
Okay, no worries. Thanks for that. Okay, have a good day.
It was quite peaceful until...
They've got us!
Like here, he's not here for any purpose of reason.
Andy, they've
He's
got us!
under arrest. But this guy here is going to be placed under arrest right now.
Well, I'm under arrest. I am media. I'm media. I've got my permit in my pocket. My permit is in my pocket. I'm fine. I've got my permit in my pocket. That night, after not being charged with any crime, not even being fined, I got a visit in a clear attempt of intimidation.
I wasn't involved in protest.
Okay. Well, your name's...
I wasn't... No.
You were there, though. So let's not dispute that.
Are you going to Channel 9 tonight? Are you going to Channel 9's house? Are you going to the journalists in Channel 7, Channel 9? Are you going to their house tonight to compliance check?
If their name's on our list because they were processed for hindering, then yes, we will.
I was never asked to move on. Nothing like that. That is a lie.
Okay, well, I'm not here to dispute
Alright, so
that.
Again, this is Leicester Square, prime real estate here, prime retail. Cineworld, it's gone. Oh, right here, and it's gone. I don't just mean it's, you know, temporarily closed, it's gone. These are all the retail. Look, this is prime retail real estate here, and it's gone. Gone, this one's gone as well. This is the Royal Opera Arcade here, and again, this is not looking good, with a lot of units just gone in this place. Just to prove it to you as well, look through here, these units are gone, they're not just temporarily closed. You don't remove all of your stuff. Here we go, out of a unit. Sports bar's gone. This used to be huge. Do you really think they're still here? A lot of them are doing this clever thing as well, where they put in a front on the business so it doesn't look like it's empty. You can see this here, it's very clever, but this is the Longacre near Covent Garden. There's another one with a front on it. It's 5 PM now, so it's now rush hour in London. Masses of people.
Just got some footage up there of these shops where they've crossed off everything. You're not allowed to have certain products. It's totalitarian rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah, the lockdown in Wales is psychotic. There's no other word for it. It's absolutely deranged. Wales have completely locked down for the next 17 days, and it's extreme. You know, you can't leave the country, you can't go into the country, people can't go to work, all non-essential businesses have been shut down, and the most perverse thing they've done is that they have gone into supermarkets and taped off all non-essential items, which includes books, apparently, birthday cards, clothing. They've decreed in their infinite wisdom, the government of Wales, that these are non-essential items. And this is the situation we've now reached.
I'm exercising.
You're not, mate.
What is riding a bike?
You're riding a bike and you're standing here, you're stopping and you're filming it all.
No, I'm not. I'm riding a bike.
No, you're not, mate.
I've got all footage.
You're stopping the whole time around here. That's not exercising. Exercising is continuously going. Do you have any idea?
Is that the rule? Is it continuous?
Do you have any idea on your...
No.
If the lockdown didn't work the first time in Britain to end COVID-19, why are they trying it a second time?
Well, that's the big question. We were told when the lockdown was first brought in late March across the whole country, we were told it would last 3 weeks. Boris Johnson said it was a 3-week lockdown that would just help the NHS. That's all it was designed to do. It's somehow stretched on to 4 months. Now it's coming back in different versions in a patchwork of lockdowns across the country. And now the aim is not simply to alleviate pressure on the NHS, but to stop anyone from getting COVID, which is absolutely mental. You cannot stop a virus in its tracks once it's out.
And so over the next few days and weeks, we plan a steady but massive expansion in the deployment of these quick turnaround tests, which we will be manufacturing in this country, applying them in an ever-growing number of situations, from helping women to have their partners with them in labour wards when they're giving birth, to testing whole towns and even cities. The army has been brought in to work on the logistics, and the programme will begin in a matter of days. Mr. Speaker, we have dexamethasone, the first validated life-saving treatment for the disease, pioneered in this country.
Anything?
If you'd like to walk that way, you're welcome to.
So I'm not allowed to walk this way?
No.
I've got a medical exemption, yes.
Okay, no problem.
Yes.
And what's that for?
For asthma.
Okay, that's fine.
So I've got that.
No problems.
So-
Like I said, I'm giving you a direction to move on at this stage. Have you provided your details to a police
I have
member
already, yes.
today? No
I
problem.
just went past before and gave that.
So you can walk that way, that's absolutely fine, but we're preventing people from walking through here at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So you guys are gathering to stop a gathering. That's... Okay. Fair enough. I'm just going for a walk, mate.
Why don't you have a face mask on today?
Because I've got a medical exemption.
And what would that be?
That's asthma.
Do you have some identification?
I've already provided to another officer.
No, I haven't provided it to me. I'd like you to provide.
I don't have to provide ID anyway. I don't need to provide. I'm just going for a walk. I don't need to provide an ID. I'm going to place you under arrest for what offence? Are you an authorised officer?
I am.
Under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act? Can I see your ID, please?
Oh, right here.
No, your actual
So I'm going to ask you.
authorised officer ID.
Then you'll be placed under arrest.
Under arrest for what offence?
Not wearing a face mask.
I have a medical exemption for the face mask. Why'd you arrest her? Looks like a violent criminal. Is that a violent criminal? You guys happy with this? Mate?
So sir, you've been given a direction to move on already.
Have I?
As long as you comply with that, you'll be arrested as well, okay? I'm asking
I'll move
you
on.
again.
Move on for what reason though?
Move on from the area.
Where are we allowed to walk? You're blocking up the whole freaking suburb. You guys are blocking up the whole suburb. We're being told to move on from there.
Comply with the direction to move on, you'll be arrested as well, okay?
Oh, see you later.
Thank you.
But where can we go? Like, you guys are blocking off the whole suburb. It's just a public area. Yeah, but you guys keep spreading further away.
You're being told to move on. You're under arrest as well.
Put your hands on your back.
I'm not resisting.
Yeah, good.
I'm not resisting.
Hands on your back. Drop your backpack.
Very proud. Very proud. What have I done wrong? What is the offence? Can you tell me the offence?
Don't even bother to.
Move on. What reason? What offence did I do?
Hi, my name's Emma from Forest Hill Police.
G'day.
Just wanted to drop this form off for you. We've just received some intel that apparently you're going to attend the protest tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
chuck it on the door.
Yeah, no worries. Do we just slide it through here?
No, put it wherever you want.
Okay.
Under arrest for what offence?
Not wearing a face mask.
I have a medical exemption for the face mask.
Well,
I have a medical exemption for asthma.
That exemption.
I've already given my name to another officer.
Martin, we've asked you to move on, please.
Yeah, I was moving on. He just stopped me.
You're no longer exercising.
Yeah, but he just stopped me.
I'm giving you a direction to move
I
on.
know, I'm moving on. He just stopped me. Okay. Okay. See yous. Okay. Bye. I'm parked over the other side.
If any genuine or awful reason, I advise you to move on, okay?
Well, I'm over the other side, so I don't know how to get there now. I wasn't.
Walk around the back street, because I'm sure if you live around the other side, you know the back street.
People that don't have, Supreme Court abilities, they just detain them, process them in a makeshift police station without any real evidence that they broke any laws. It calls into question the entire policing of today, and in COVID-19 in general. Are you going to pay that fine?
I'm paying that.
They're all being issued a $1,652 fine, no matter what they were doing here.
going on? What is going on? What the hell? What, you don't want us to film you? Just calm down. Just calm down. You guys are brutally attacking a civilian. We're all fine.
Well, just explain what you're doing first, and then perhaps I'll comply easily. But you're just yelling, you got people everywhere. Explain, just talk to me properly. Like, what is going on? You've just rocked up with force, got no idea, like early in the morning. Can you just explain, and then I will open the door? Yeah, what's it? Search warrant for what? What gives you the authority to have a search warrant? Whoa, you do that. You know what? Leave my shit! Don't break my stuff, you... Hey, stop breaking my shit! Leave my shit! Whoa. Yeah, okay. Alright, stop. Stop.
Yeah, is it illegal to hold a flag, is it, mate?
If you're going to move on order, he's being arrested. Back up, mate.
Arrested for what? Yeah. It's a free country. Do you guys love doing this?
What was your reason for putting up the post and wanting to do the silent protest? Why did you do that?
Well, for one, I actually, sorry about my bimbo moment, I didn't realise that I wasn't allowed to. And I did kind of want to protest in Melbourne, but obviously I knew I wasn't allowed to do that. So I just wanted to feel like I was doing something, standing up for human rights. No, I'm too scared now. And it's fear mongering. That's how I feel.
Well, folks, they're certainly becoming more upfront with the agenda, aren't they? This tweet is from Time magazine from the 23rd of October. The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. And it's an image of the world being reconstructed. I mean, come on. How much more evidence do you need that the world is supposed to be massively reordered after the COVID crisis? Because to rebuild a new world order, you have to tear down the old one. And that can only be done with some kind of crisis. Almost like the crisis itself was part of the re-engineering process.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
There's been some conspiracy theories that are around about the potential that pharmaceutical companies or the UN have released this for their own benefit.
And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
A new coronavirus. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia.
In related news, a significant demand for personal protective equipment like N95 masks and gloves are on the rise. Patients are overwhelming healthcare facilities. People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. Our U.S. affiliate has just released polling results on public expectations for a vaccine, and 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
I'm not optimistic about having the vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
With enough money and political will, anything is possible.
Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests.
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
What exactly are the risks and benefits of staying home from work? Absolutely, we need to save lives, but we literally cannot afford a heavy-handed response that suffocates our economy.
The world saw large-scale protests and in some places riots. This led to violent crackdowns in some countries and even martial law. The public lost trust in their respective administration. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad?
Week.
Oh, so I am on the nightly news.
Relax.
Yeah.
Here. Relax.
Yeah.
Here.
A pandemic is a disease which is prevalent over a whole country. This is not a pandemic. It was never a pandemic. So let's look briefly at the facts surrounding mortality. We'll continue to hear stories about more cases, a second wave, more masks, more lockdowns, more fear. As at today, if we take countries from America, with 328 million people, to Sweden with 10 million, and outfits like Italy, France, the UK, Spain, and Australia in between. Now remember, these statistics are of people who died with it, not from it. They had other preconditions. But let's start with America, 328 million. The percentage of population who've died is 0.07%. Alarmism says Trump must suffer because he hasn't imposed draconian lockdowns. Italy, population 60 million, deaths 0.06%. France, alarmism everywhere. Population 67 million, deaths 0.05%. Sweden, no draconian lockdowns. Basic precautions, but get on with your life. Population 10 million, deaths much the same, 0.06%. The UK, population 67 million. The Prime Minister was forced into lockdowns by alarmist modelling. Deaths, 0.07%. Spain, 47 million. Deaths, 0.07%. 0.07%. Lockdowns everywhere. The deaths, marginally the same as Sweden with no lockdown. Australia, population 25 million, but we're an island continent. Had we not had Ruby Princess and international travellers, we should have escaped easily. Even so, the deaths are 0.0035%. But look at the price we're now paying. Is this a pandemic or just another flu? I have for months cited one international authority after another who's argued that the strategy is wrong. Professor Joel Kepner from Manitoba University in Canada has said, and I quote, "I've seen pandemics, one every year. It's called influenza and other respiratory illness viruses. I've never seen this reaction, and I'm trying to understand why." And of course, Professor John Ioannidis, the Professor of Epidemiology and Population Health at Stanford University. Now think of the figures I've just given you. Professor Ioannidis has said, if we'd not known about a new virus out there and had not checked individuals with PCR tests, the number of total deaths due to, quote, influenza-like illness would not seem unusual this year. At most, we might have casually noted that flu this season seems to be a bit worse than average. The media coverage would have been less than for an NBA game between the two most indifferent teams, unquote. So there you are.
Thousands of doctors and medical scientists are taking a stand against the nation's lockdowns, calling for the country to reopen. One America's Pearson Sharp has more as scientists say lockdowns have devastating consequences for public health.
Tens of thousands of doctors are taking a stand against the oppressive lockdowns imposed by radical left-wing governors across the country. Some 35,000 doctors worldwide have joined together and signed a new document calling for an immediate end to the pandemic lockdowns. The effort, known as the Great Barrington Declaration, is being spearheaded by doctors from Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford universities. These doctors say they have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the COVID-19 policies, which have had tremendously negative consequences on public well-being. Instead, the doctors are calling for a new approach, what they call focused protection. Their new plan would allow most people to live their lives normally, building up immunity through natural infection, but also providing safeguards for the elderly and other at-risk communities. The consequences of the lockdown include fewer children going in for vaccinations, more deaths from heart attacks, fewer cancer screenings, and deteriorating mental health. The doctors say all these effects will lead to an increase in deaths in the years to come, all of which could have been prevented if not for the lockdowns. The medical scientists also argued against waiting to reopen for a vaccine, saying that keeping these measures in place until a vaccine is developed will cause irreparable damage.
So, in your experience as a doctor, is this lockdown more harmful to the public health than the coronavirus?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was supposed to be a 2-week slow the curve, turned into a 6-month complete lockdown. But there's no science based behind that. Nobody can live in lockdown forever. That's not healthy for anyone.
Following the declaration from the doctors, White House officials have taken notice and are now considering the recommendations outlined in the proposal. States like California have imposed some of the harshest lockdowns in the nation, with devastating consequences to public health and forcing tens of thousands of businesses to permanently shut down. Yet others, like South Dakota, have imposed no lockdowns whatsoever, with Governor Noem using her state as an example of how pointless the lockdowns have been. Pearson Sharp, One America News.
The same World Health Organization that has a history of faking pandemics in the past.
It is one of the greatest medical scandals of the century, according to a leading health expert in Brussels. The Council of Europe health chief has accused major pharmaceutical firms of organizing a campaign of panic and unduly influencing World Health Organization decisions. And with European countries now burdened with bills for millions of unwanted doses of the swine flu vaccine, he wants an investigation. Our science correspondent Tom Clark has this report.
If only the mainstream media were as skeptical today as they were 10 years ago.
Flu viruses can spread.
64,000 people dead, tens of thousands hospitalized, a country crippled by a virus. The predictions for the impact of swine flu on Britain were grim. The government's response, spending hundreds of millions of pounds on antiviral drugs and vaccines, adverts and leaflets. But 10 months into the pandemic, only 355 Britons have died, and globally, the virus hasn't lived up to our fears. Were governments misled into preparing for the worst? Politicians in Brussels are now asking for an investigation into the role pharmaceutical companies played in influencing political decisions that led to a swine flu spending spree.
There must be a process to get more transparency, how the decisions in the WHO, how they function, and who is influencing the decisions of the WHO, and what is the role of the pharmaceutical industry there. I'm very suspicious about the processes which are behind this pandemic.
The Council of Europe Committee want the investigation to focus on the World Health Organization's decision to lower the threshold required for a pandemic to be formally declared.
Is anyone else getting a very strong sense of déjà vu here?
The world is now at the start of the 2009 influenza pandemic.
When this happened in June last year, governments had to activate huge pre-prepared contracts for drugs and vaccines with manufacturers. They also want to probe ties between key WHO advisors and drug companies.
All I can say is, memories are very short.
Who is deciding what the risk is? Is it the pharmaceutical companies who want to sell drugs, or is it someone making a decision based on the perceived danger? In this case, it appears that the danger was vastly exaggerated. And was it exaggerated by the pharmaceutical companies in order to make money?
Sounds like the World Health Organization has cried wolf before, but this time, for some reason, they were successful.
COVID-19 is one of the biggest crises of our time. It has impacted every single one of us, shaken our social systems, and disrupted every sector of our economies. The automation of work, combined with the global recession, led workers to lose their jobs at an accelerated pace compared to previous years. And this trend is expected to continue. The ongoing shift in the division of labor between humans, machines, and algorithms might displace 85 million jobs worldwide in the next 5 years, while 97 million new roles, ones that are more adapted to this new task distribution, may emerge. By 2025, companies expect to displace roughly 6% of their total workforce. 1 in 2 workers will need reskilling, and those remaining in their current roles will need to update 40% of their skill set to adapt to the changing labor market. There is a way to collectively benefit from these challenging times. Decades of research have shown that the most valuable asset of any economy or company is its human capital. Around the globe, companies are already experiencing a shortage in relevant skills for future roles and are investing in reskilling and upskilling their workforce. By 2025, organizations say they will train over 70% of their employees to ensure they can smoothly transition into the jobs of tomorrow. These include DevOps engineers, artificial intelligence specialists, digital marketing managers, talent acquisition specialists, and customer success specialists. It will take on average between 2 weeks and 5 months for workers to pick up new skills, allowing them to move into these new roles. But data shows they won't need to have the perfect skill set to start transitioning. While 2/3 of employers expect to get a return on investment in employees' reskilling programs within just 1 year, governments will also need to step in to update and fund education and training systems, and to ensure displaced workers have adequate safety nets. With purposeful leadership and collaboration, we can turn this global crisis into a unique opportunity to transition into a future of jobs that is inclusive, fair, and sustainable.
As you may have already heard, it's all starting to unravel. It had to happen. At 3:05 p.m. today, an economist in the Victorian Department of Finance and Treasury, Sanjeev Sablock, announced that he had resigned last week. I quote, "at length, so that I would be free to speak out against the state's management of the COVID-19 infection. I made a number of criticisms of the state government on social media. The head of human relations at Treasury asked me to remove them. I resigned on the same day, the only honourable course for a free citizen of Australia." He said, "I never dreamt I'd see some of the tactics being used to defend the state's health. The pandemic policies being pursued in Australia," he wrote, "particularly in Victoria, are the most heavy-handed possible, a sledgehammer to kill a swarm of flies." He went on, "These policies are having hugely adverse economic, social and health effects, with the poorer sections of the community who don't have the ability to work from home suffering the most. Australia," he said, "is signalling to the world that it's closed for business and doesn't care for human freedoms. This will dampen business investment, but also impact future skilled migration, the education industry and tourism." Unquote. Now, echoing what I've been saying for months, this former Victorian Treasury economist said, and I quote, "The whole thing hinges on the scare created by politicians and health professionals. For instance, Victoria's Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, claims this is, quote, the greatest public health challenge since the Spanish flu," unquote. He writes, "This is no Spanish flu. We can verify that easily. The Spanish flu killed at least 50 million people worldwide in 1918, when the global population was 1.8 billion. Proportionately, to be as lethal as the Spanish flu, a virus would have to kill today at least 210 million people. Instead, only around 0.9 million have died so far. Compare this," he says, "with the 60 million who ordinarily die each year." Sanjeev Sablock said, quote, "But even if the pandemic had been as big as the Spanish flu, lockdowns could never have been justified. There are strong scientific arguments against lockdowns. So what should the government have done?" He said the data were clear from February itself, that the elderly are many times more vulnerable to a serious outcome than the young. It was necessary, therefore, to work out a targeted, age-based strategy and start aggressively protecting and isolating the elderly, even as the rest of the population was advised on relevant precautions. But he said that wasn't done. He wrote, "The need for good policy process does not disappear just because we face a public health crisis. In fact, it gets even more urgent." He wrote, "The Victorian Guide to Regulation notes," and he quotes, "it is not possible for governments to provide a completely risk-free society or to prevent every possible event that might cause harm. It says risk regulation that is poorly targeted or costly will divert resources from other priorities," unquote. Governments back in February, he said, needed to commission a cost-benefit analysis of alternative policy options that took into account different scenarios, such as with and without a vaccine. Sanjeev Sablock said, thereafter, the best option had to be picked, given the uncertainty, but consisted also with the need to intrude minimally into human freedoms. This cost-benefit analysis and policies needed then to be updated as new information emerged. He said, such as the fact that epidemiological models have badly exaggerated the risk. He wrote, "I attempted repeatedly to raise my voice, but my attempts were rebuffed. The bureaucracy has clamped down on frank and fearless and impartial advice in a misplaced determination to support whatever the government decides instead of performing its taxpayer-funded duty of providing forthright analysis of alternatives." Well, listen to this. He goes on. "While there is scientific argument against lockdowns, there are divergent views on matters such as the effectiveness of masks." He wrote, "I am a mask fanatic, but there was never any reason to mandate these debatable requirements. Voluntary, performance-based rules would allow the private sector to innovate, leaving people to determine their own fate." Now, if I just interpolate here, this is what I've been saying, we can look after our own health. But the doctor goes on, quote, "thereby minimising economic harm and harm to mental health and general well-being." Now, cop this. He says, quote, "So what happens now? Billions of dollars of income and wealth have been wiped out in the name of a virus that is no worse than the Asian flu, and which can even now be managed by isolating the elderly and taking a range of voluntary, innovative measures. He says all the border closures, all the lockdowns, all the curfews in Melbourne will not eradicate the virus from planet Earth, unquote. Now, as I've said many times, politicians can't eliminate a virus. Well, The Economist concludes, and I quote, "The problem for politicians now is to reverse course without losing their job. I don't know how they plan to do it." He says, but if they don't do it sooner rather than later, the damage to Australia's future would have become so great it will undo the good work of decades of reform, unquote. That's Dr. Sanjeev Sabalok, the Senior Manager of Economic Strategy advising the Victorian Government. He's resigned on a range of efficiency, productivity, market and regulatory reforms, on cost of living issues and aspects of tax reform. He's got a PhD in economics from the University of Southern California. My point is simple, and without pumping up my tyres, Adam Crichton and I have been saying this for months. So's Andrew Bolt. One question remains, doesn't it? How many others have been silenced across all arms of government, including in Canberra? Will this doctor now be condemned, and does this failed strategy stay in place? I've warned over and over again that the political leaders who are the architects of this response will not be able to escape the kind of criticism that is now finding its way into the public place. In fact, it's worse than this. I have said we need a national advertising campaign to tell the public the truth about the fact that this virus is not a pandemic. Now, some eminent opinions are being expressed through 3 sets of data compiled by officials in Massachusetts, New York and Nevada that, listen to this, up to 90% of people testing positive carry barely any virus. Oddly enough, this was reported in the New York Times. Now all this emphasis on how many cases, how many people have tested positive, I've said from day one, is rubbish. But that will all keep for another night.